Hey everybody, thanks for sticking around. And Cowboy Wrestler, how are you? There is a lot going on. They say, what's the latest in the O's Ballpark? I'll get to that, but before I discuss that, I want to really get something. There's a lot. There's a lot I want to cover. First of all, one thing is this. Uh, this is totally unrelated to anything that the title would indicate, but it has to do with behind the scenes account or behind the Twitter veil, if you will, discussion I had with someone I'm not going to name because I don't think they would appreciate it if I put their name out there. But I will only say that the person is a Florida sports reporter who took issue with my reference to racism regarding a publication. And I have to say that, well, since I put it out there, I won't say the person, but I will say the publication. I said the Tampa Bay Times, and I said the Times had a history of it. Uh, and this person took offense to what I said, obviously, and said, what do I mean? And we'll give them an example. And I did. In August of this year, during a coverage of local race, election race, the publication took went out of its way really to put out negative information about black candidates, specifically crimes they alleged to committed, that sort of thing. In other words, painting a bad picture of them, but completely ignored similar information regarding white candidates. Okay, just ignored it. And then when they were called on it, when Tampa Bay Times was called on it, they came up with an explanation that was at best lukewarm. And this person who's white said, well, basically, you're saying that I don't know what racism is. I can't see with my white eyes. I said, yeah, that's correct. Because I have a different set of insecurities that come from with being an African American than he does. And my issue with media today is this habit of some white journalists who have this idea that they can tell you as a black person what racism is or is not, rather than asking you or listening to your response and your take and your walk without getting defensive. Okay? And he said, sorry to bother you. So you're not bothering me. I happen to, I haven't met the person yet in person. I'm sure I will. But I have nothing against that kind of exchange because I think that we need more of those exchanges today. And not only that, I have to say that anybody who's white, who's in an interracial relationship or family marriage or mixed marriage understands and has a unique walk that others don't have, okay? I just wanted to bring that out there because it was one reason I was late. And I kept saying, well, I'm late here, but I didn't want to put him off because he pinged me on Twitter privately and said, basically, what do you mean? And I explained it, all right? So now let's move along. Now that I got that out of the way. Since two of you have asked me about the lawsuit, I'll, in fairness, get that out of the way front and center. Is the lawsuit dropped? Here's the deal, okay? And I need you to focus for a moment off the lawsuit in the way that you're asking me about it, because there's a gigantic problem, all right? Let me explain this to you, okay? I want to make sure this is understood. Excuse me. The Oakland Athletics, I had the heater on because it's getting a little chilly. In fact, hey Google, what's the outside temperature?
The current temperature in Fayetteville is 53.
It's 50. It's getting cold, okay? Anyway, here's the thing. There is a big problem. The Oakland Athletics are about this close to achieving their goal of having a tax increment financing zone around Howard Terminal. And you say, what is that? That is where the property tax that you normally would pay if you were a property owner in Jack London Square, that dollar normally goes to different what are called taxing agencies. A taxing agency is simply another word for a municipal corporation that imposes or levies a tax on you that they collect. Taxing agency. The city of Oakland is one of those taxing agencies. The county of Alameda is another of those taxing agencies. BART is another taxing agency, as is the Alameda Contra Costa Transit District as a taxing agency, and as is the East Bay Municipal Utility District with their flood unit control areas. Those are 5 primary taxing agencies, and there's a 6th, and that is the Oakland School District, which technically is a state of California. So it goes to the state and the money comes back to the school. Okay, so there's 6 taxing agencies. But when a tax increment financing zone is created, that dollar that's split among these 6 taxing agencies goes to one organization. And that one is the redevelopment agency or similar organization created for the purpose of collecting those monies and then steering those monies toward the annual payoff of a bond issue that was floated for the purpose of achieving plan goals set by a redevelopment agency. In this instance, building the athletics ballpark and its surroundings. Okay? So, the A's, in the scheme of the plan, will own the stadium. They own the ballpark. That's known. But what's not realized, unless you are experienced in doing tax increment financing numbers, and I've done hundreds of them since going back to 1987, is that because it's privately financed, it means that they own the stadium. Because they own the stadium, it means that the assessed value of the ballpark becomes part of the tax increment. So you're probably still saying, what? It's like this. This is the, what's called, trying to find an example here. Let's say that this is this building. Well, let me draw it out for you. I think if I draw it, it might make more sense if I sketch it out for you, okay? It's like this. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Okay. Let me bring you down over here to explain it. All right. This is the property example. All right, here. This is our TIF zone, tax increment financing zone. Okay. Here. All right. This is also the tax increment financing zone. In this instance, will be much of Howard Terminal and Jack London Square and the surrounding area. Okay, right? That's this. So its initial year consists of the ballpark here. All right, so we just say BP, right? Okay. The ballpark, the buildings that are behind the ballpark, right? And then, of course, as we said, because it's a Tower Terminal, and then Jack London Square and the surrounding area. The ballpark alone is about let's say 1.4 billion. Okay? So let's say that for the purpose of extraction, the rest of the area here is 600 million or 0.6 billion, right? Which is 600 million, okay? So that together is 2 billion, right? So we start off our assessed value at 2 billion. So the way tax increment financing works is the next year, this is year 0, okay? So year 1, right? Same area, okay? All right? But it goes up in value. It goes from 2 billion, right? So let's say the next year, just for grins, all right, it's worth 2.1 billion. Okay. So that difference, or 2,100,000,000, right? So it's grown by 100 million, right? So the first revenue is this 100 million times the tax rate, which is 0.1, okay? 1%, all right? 0.01, okay? So really it's more like 0.01, it's 1%, okay? 0.01, got it? So you keep going up with that money. And what'll happen is because you keep going up with that money, okay? Let's say you keep going up with it, all this money goes to pay for the stadium, okay? Now imagine doing that for a 40-year period, or imagine doing it for a 50-year period or a 60-year period. So you start calculating out that money, it comes into a lot. And the question is, just how much is that? Well, it's enough to cause a substantial subsidy, potentially, for Howard Terminal. Now, the Athletics haven't told us what they expect that number to be. But ask yourself this question. Why would you, as the Oakland Athletics, go through the exercise of trying to establish a tax increment financing zone and not know what your revenue throw-off is going to be? Does that make any sense? Okay, of course not. It doesn't make any sense at all. Also, why would the city of Oakland do that? The city of Oakland should have done that, right? Okay. So, and then why is it that that they're so keen on getting the Coliseum as fast as they can, talking about the Oakland A's? Okay. These are basic questions. These are basic questions. Basic questions. And what I'm finding out from a number of people I'm talking to is that they haven't figured out the answer to those questions. They say. But the reality is that tax increment financing revenue in and of itself is not hard to figure out. The formula to do it is on the internet. It's been done thousands, actually really millions of times in California history. We consider, just some back of the envelope calculation or spreadsheet calculation that somebody did, right? All that's been done, okay? So with all of that, you say, what happened to that expertise? Well, a lot of that expertise it didn't necessarily go away. But what happened was that when Jerry Brown killed redevelopment, that cottage industry of consultants kind of went dormant along with it, all right? So now, for a number of reasons, it's coming back in vogue, okay? Take a look at this. You see that? E10, you know what that is? Times 0.01, that's the tax rate. What does that deal with? Tax increment financing revenue. So in the example that I showed you, okay, here, okay, applies to this. Look at this. Let's say that this is called the base year, year one. Let's say for sake of argument, remember my example where it's the ballpark plus the surroundings, all right? So what I did in this example was I simply said this, that the assessed value for Howard Terminal Infrastructure District, the new A Stadium, I priced at $1,330,000,000, okay? The estimated assessed value of the rest of the area comes in at $676 million. There's your total assessed value for year one, okay? That's your base year. This is 0, your base year, okay? Now, where does that fall in this calculation, the spreadsheet? It's up here. Here's your base year. That's your base year. So let's assume a 7% annual growth rate. No, let's not even do that. That's really high, even though that's about the average. Let's assume that it's 0.03, 3%, okay? 3% annual growth rate, which is much lower than reality, right? Tax increment financing revenue, there's your first increment right there, right? That's it, because that's 3% growth. And then what are we multiplying it? See that? What does that say? What is that? That's the E10. What is E10? E10 is your increment. Your first year increment is 60 million, right? Times 1%. 0.01, right? That gives you 600 million. But then let's go down 40 years because we're issuing a 40-year bond, right? What do we have at the end of 40 years? Okay? And we keep going down here, and what are we doing? We are, all right, each year, look at this. Look at this, okay? The increment revenue grows and 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 grows. What does that equal? That's 852 million at the end of a 40-year period. All right? That is 852 million in public money. Okay? Right? That's just at 3%, okay? Okay? That's for the A's ballpark. That's just at 3%. Now, what if it was at 2%? Right? Now, here's the kicker about 2%. 2%, a 2% growth is something to keep in mind. 2% is an increase that the government can give itself by law. Okay, by law. So if it was just at 2%, in other words, no real property buying or anything, just 2%, just sitting there at 2%, right? There's 2. What does that get us? Let's go down and find out. At 2%, for 40 years, 484 million. But you and I both know that's not going to be the case, right? It's more likely to be, say, 4% annual growth, okay? So let's take 4%. Change that here to a 4, right? Boom, okay? And now what do we have at 4%? Look at that. $1,344,000,000. Okay? There's no trickery. Hey, folks, no trickery here. Let me show you these calculations. You can do this with your own spreadsheets, okay? Look at this. Okay? Formula's right here. And this is on video, right? This is on live stream. So look at that formula. It's D9, right? What's D9, okay, right? Times D9 plus D9 times F9. What's F9 is the growth rate, right? That's what that is. Then we go here, okay? D10, same exercise, all right? Then what is this? This is D11 minus D9. Why is D9? Why do we lock it in? Because this is the base year. That's the way tax increment financing works. Remember this? Base year, current year minus the base year increment, right? That's what that is. Okay? And so every year you have this revenue and it's accumulated. That's tax increment financing. Do you see? The Oakland Athletics stand to collect as much as, assuming a modest 4% annual growth rate, $1.3 billion in public money. $1.3 billion. Okay? And where does the majority of that money come from? Their own ballpark at $1.3 billion itself, plus the assessed value of the area around it. And this, okay, and that's conservative. You know why? You know all those buildings that are behind the ballpark? Just eyeballing that alone is $400 million on top of the ballpark. Okay? So the sheer size and value of the ballpark plus the assessed value for the base year of Jack London Square, that area is going to be within it, and this, it could be even more than that, gives us a gigantic base. And then when that base starts increasing in value, that throw off at 1% annually is a lot of money. It's a gargantuan ton of money. In fact, it's so much money that you could arguably take that subsidy and do what? You could pay for the A Stadium at Howard Terminal. So ask yourself this question. Why do the A's need the Coliseum? Okay. I have what I think are some answers. I believe that they figured it's like this. They don't want anybody, they figure, hey, look, if the city realizes how much money we can get, we may not have control over that entire TIF area, so we need some insurance. Or they may think this. We want to finance the whole doggone thing by both and not spend any money out of our own pockets. Okay? Cowboy says they're not going to get that kind of money in Portland, Las Vegas. No, they're not. The A's stand to gain a great deal of insistence. But see, the A's cover will be, we can't use that money for anything but infrastructure. That's what they'll say. And they'll bank on their idea that you didn't read the legislation. Well, I read it for you. And let me tell you this. It has a great deal of language flexibility. For example, it can be used to provide housing. It can be used for structures in the area. It doesn't say it can't be used for the ballpark. It doesn't have any definitive language like that. But it has enough language describing how it can be used, like for warehousing or parking. You get the idea of transportation. When you start looking at what the money can be used for, and then you know what your ballpark has, like, for example, parking garage, gigantic ballrooms, offices, shops, right? Retail. You can slide that. By the time you're done trying to figure out where the ballpark fits in the legislation, which is pretty much everywhere, you will conclude that, hey, that public subsidy can be used for the ballpark, period. But see, folks, that's not anywhere near the top of this. Because think about it. Oakland has a giant what? A giant homeless problem. So ask yourself this question. If this can yield just that amount of money, like what, 1.3 billion, right? What would happen? Let's just have a little fun with this, okay? Let's say that we enlarge the tax increment financing area, okay? Like this, okay? Let's say that instead of 2 billion, right? Let's double it. Let's say that it was larger than that. Let's say that it was, let's see here. That's total AV, right? Let's say that the estimated area here, let's just give it another number just for grins for a second before because I'm not going to save that one. I want to keep this one. Let's just plug another, what the heck, 3 billion, right? Let's say we're able to identify $3 billion of additional, right? Additional land. We expanded the tax increment zone so that the total assessed value is now $4,330,000,000. Look at that. That's almost $3 billion in tax increment financing money over a 40-year period. All right? 3 billion. 3 billion. 3 billion. Okay? Now let's do some more math. All right? Just figure out something really quick here. How many households are there in Oakland? I forgot. Households, Oakland, okay? Number of households. Like that, right? Okay. There are 100, there in 2017, there were, here, 169,303 households in the city with an average size, okay, we'll forget the average size, 169,303, right? Okay, 169,303, okay? Keep this in mind, 169,303. Okay, so I got 169,303, right? So this is what I'm going to do. Watch this. That's 169,303. That's my almost 3 billion, right? So what would happen if I said this, okay? Let's say G52 divided by G57, okay? What is that? Oops. Excuse me. G52 divide G57. Okay, that should work, right? All right. Look, there. That's $17,139 for each household. So basically, with that increment, I could give that much to each Oakland household if I wanted to as a dividend. Maybe if I wanted to divide it over a 10-year period, right? Or something like that. Okay, so I could that's okay, that's a lot of money to be able to divide over each and every Oakland household. That's $17,000. Okay? So what if we wanted to say, hey, you know what? Excuse me. Point that I'm making is that we can take that money, and that's only over, that's 2 billion, that's $3 billion, okay? What if it were double that? Well, then you're looking at closer to, you could push the $40,000 per household. You give to each one. And the whole purpose would be, you would say, okay, why? Well, as a kind of an Alaska-style dividend, or you could shrink it. What's an Alaska-style dividend? Well, Alaska takes its oil monies and it divides it among its electorate. Okay? Splits it up. All right? My point is that with this system, you can use it for a lot of things. If it's found out the A's would get all of it, there will be an issue. So the A's are trying to make sure they are able to have wealth coming from two areas and an unprecedented level of control. Someone has said to Dave Cavall, look, the mayor of Oakland gave you an option for either Howard Terminal or the Coliseum. You decided to choose both. Reality, they only need one. Just one. They don't need the Coliseum. There is enough. And see, here's my issue with their ask for the Coliseum. If they're allowed to get the Coliseum and then tear down the stadium, that means what? We've got no large-scale facility to rebuild our sports industry at a time when sports gambling is legalized, at a time when esports gaming is taking off, at a time when in 2023, college athletes will be able to make money in California from their likeness. So you got all this money sloshing around and Oakland's going to basically get out of the sports business? With the Athletics basically holding the keys and determining which sports teams can and cannot come in and saying, hey, look, we want to be top dog because then only you would only have us as your entertainment dollar, nothing else. We don't want anybody competing against us. We don't want another NFL team here that takes money out of our pockets. We don't want another NBA team here where it takes money out of our pockets, okay? So we're allowing the A's to crowd out our future. In fact, they already did it with respect to the XFL. That's why we don't have the XFL, because the Athletics said, we know that interrupts our schedule at the Coliseum. Think about that. Think about that. They didn't say, oh, we know that, we're going to be out of here to Howard Terminal in a few years, right? So we'll make room for the XFL. Oh, no. Oh, no. The Athletics openly stood in the way of the city of Oakland in getting the XFL. Think about that. The Athletics, the team that you want to have, okay, all right? Joe says that's why you lost the Raiders. Hey, we can't allow that. And then not only that, we have an unprecedentedly high level of wealth coming out of our real estate as reflected in these assessed value numbers and their increases, right? So part of that money can be used for the provision of not just affordable, but extremely low-income housing in the Jack London Square area. There's enough money to do that too. The A's said that they would do that. Well, there you are. Okay. My contention is that the Athletics know this number. My other contention is the city of Oakland has not done this homework. And so they've given the Athletics the intellectual keys with which to start the car that takes them on the road they want to go. And because of the way that road is designed, because of the car that they're driving, we would, if we allowed that to happen, be quite literally taken for the ride. That's not a good situation for the city. And I'm telling you, we would be called suckers beyond belief. It's not even a matter of what we would be called, okay? Okay? It's not even a matter of what we would be called. It'll be a matter of fact. Who cares what the name is? It'll be a matter of fact. They'll be like, hey, you let them do that to you? You seceded your economic development future to one organization like that? And what are you getting out of it? Are you getting a lot of jobs? No. See, I can make this argument. I would say this. I would say, hey, look, you know what? If the Athletics are going to have that much tax increment revenue at Howard Terminal, write the legislation so there can be what's called a non-contiguous redevelopment zone. What does that mean? It means you have one over here, Howard Terminal, but you can also use the tax increment money over at the Coliseum. And then you develop the Coliseum for affordable housing and for a new stadium there as a gift to the city. You allow the city to use that over there for its own purposes. If the A's want to share, that's fine, okay? But you have to make absolutely certain that the edict of the Coliseum area specific plan is followed and that our needs are met. We have a dire need for very low income housing. We have a dire need to build basic jobs and basic industry because we've forgotten how to do it. Now that's me talking, okay? As far as the jobs and the industry thing. But as far as the Coliseum area specific plan, that's the people of East Oakland talking, okay? So you get back to your comments now. But now do you see, and I appreciate you going through the exercise with me. And so Cowboy Wrestler started off, hey, Roland Dubs, how are you doing? He says, I find it funny that an educated man like Dave Cavall didn't know that a tax increment financing was possible at Howard Terminal. He didn't until I told him, and that's just being honest. He and I had a conversation April 4th of 2017, and he swore up and down that tax increment financing could be used because redevelopment was dead. And you have to remember something. He is much younger than me. I am. I'm 57. He is, what, pushing 37? We have a 20-year gap. So there's a history I have that he doesn't know and can't replicate. And it just so happens that my first job out of grad school at Cal was with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency, working on something called the Coliseum Redevelopment Survey Area. It was my area redevelopment economic model. It was a model that I made based on a Lotus 123 spreadsheet platform, such that you can run any redevelopment idea you have up and down the state of California in it, and you can see the tax increment throw off calculations. It's estimated, depending on the mix of land uses and the square footage, employment throw off, and then the revenue for tax revenue that would come from that, and so on. All right, I built that, and it created the numbers that gave way to what was called the Coliseum Redevelopment Area, which lasted from 1988 until redevelopment was killed in 2011. So I have an expertise that doesn't exactly grow on trees. And so what I was explaining to Dave is that the 2010 Gruen study, Gruen has a 2010 study, which actually a copy of is referred to at Oakland News Now. Hey, ML Scott, how you doing? If you go there and you type Oakland 600 million, you should get two results. I think one of them, type Oakland A's tax increment revenue in the search. Type Oakland tax increment revenue. And the results, I believe the first result should have a link to the Gruen study of 2010 that was done for the organization called Let's Go Oakland, that was headed by Doug Boxer and Mike Gilmetti. Doug Boxer is a real estate lawyer whose mother was Barbara Boxer, our famous and great senator. And Mike Gilmetti is a well-known local real estate developer who's building what's called Brooklyn Basin, which is a 3,000 unit housing development, and that is going to be outstanding. And that's our next new town in town too, right down there at the waterfront, just south of Jack London Square. But I digress. Those two gentlemen partnered with a number of business people to try to build the first version of the A's ballpark at Howard Terminal, but because they ran up against opposition, it failed. or it didn't go. I don't want to say failed because that sounds insulting. It didn't work. Okay. And if you want to meet those gentlemen in a cyber kind of way, they're here at Zenny62. I interviewed them there. Okay. So at any rate, you see here, I think the point that you were making up here, all right, is right about there. Oh, hey, John Akala, how you doing? He says, I find it, yeah. So my point is that Dave Cavall didn't know that. He didn't know about the Gruen study, which laid out the tax increment financing. The Gruen study was done for Doug Boxer and Mike Gelmetti. So the result was the Gruen study, which actually laid out 3 different tax increment scenarios that I used to form the basis for the calculation that I showed you in the spreadsheet at the onset of this live stream, okay? And so Dave Cavall didn't know that. So I sent him the study in an email. All right, I sent him the study as well as a link to what's called SB 628 Beal. Now, what is that? That was supposed to be the son of redevelopment that was passed September 14th of 2015 and signed into law by then California Governor Jerry Brown. To make a long story short, it allowed tax increment financing to be used for infrastructure development and low-income housing development, okay? But it was never used, and it has never been used in the city of Oakland since its passing, okay? Since its passing, all right? So, Dave apparently looked at what I sent to him, gathered his team, and they, I think, rightly concluded that rather than use 628 Beal, because I guess maybe there was probably language in there that undoubtedly probably thought they would probably cause them a problem. There's one item that I think could be misinterpreted or interpreted in a way that didn't work out in their favor. So they decided to roll the political dice because they have a great relationship with the Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf. They have a great relationship with Assemblyman and Rob Bonta, who's a really fine person, okay? And Assemblyman Bonta, and also Phil Ting as well, as our other representative in the state of California, who actually came this close to being my attorney years ago. They all got together and created the leadership group that drove the tax increment financing legislation to the point where it's at now, very close to being signed into law by California Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, okay, that's how we got there. So my point is that a person can be educated, but there's one thing to be educated, but there's only so much you can know. And the problem in the way things are done is because the mayor doesn't have a task force with people like myself on it, and I'm being blunt. She doesn't have to, or she doesn't have the luxury of an ability to tap into a base of people who've been there and done that and got the t-shirt, all right? That's the problem. She has her own little kitchen cabinet of staff people and a couple of real estate people she talks to, but she doesn't have collective expertise. And, you know, part of it is for some really awful political reasons that she holds that she needs to let go of. She needs to let go of because it's hampering a lot of stuff. Okay, let me go back to your comments. And so, where is this? So I got Cowboy Wrestler. Okay. Then he says they're not going to get that kind of money in Portland or Las Vegas. No. Hachital says, I'm surprised the 49ers haven't made an offer for the Coliseum property. Are they not allowed to? Well, they're locked into a lease that's decades long over at Levi Stadium. They can't just jump out of it. It's a new stadium, and the contract is tied around the idea that they're going to be playing in there for quite some time. Joe Maintenance Hole says that's why you lost the Raiders. Talking about, I believe, the matter of the athletics. And, hey, there's some, I think there's some truth to that. But see, Dave Cavall contends that he tried to make a deal with Mark Davis and that Davis wouldn't call him back. So, all right, I don't want to get hung up on that. Move forward. The question is, we know all that, right? The question is, how are we going to move forward to accomplish our objectives of rebuilding our sports industry better than it was before? And Cowboy Rusher says, wow, it seems like the A's want to make it so no other professional sports are allowed to play in Oakland. I didn't know that about the XFL. Yeah, no, I mean, Scott McKibben will tell you, because he's the one that tried to get the XFL in, and he was none too happy about what he was getting back from the A's, okay? It wasn't that the A's weren't responsive. I mean, this is how Scott put it. Scott didn't say, oh, dog on those A's or anything. No. I don't want to be thought of as reporting that. No. What he said specifically, and Scott was the executive director of the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority. What he said specifically was this, that the A's were responsive. They sat down, they went through a number of scenarios, but they couldn't work anything out. Now, you see, when I tell you that, if you trust what I say, which in this case you shouldn't, work with me, okay? Work with me, okay? If you trust what I say, which I appreciate, right? But if you trust what I say, you think, okay, you're filling in your blanks with what does that mean? Now, what does it mean? We tried different scenarios. But if you didn't trust what I said, your question would be, did they really consider every single scenario? And one scenario that I thought of was, wait a minute. If the A's are concerned about a schedule or a conflict, there was like one game there was a conflict. Can't they assist by maybe, having that game at Berkeley or maybe Laney College or, right? You know what I mean? In other words, some kind of creative way to work it out. But they didn't. See, the unanswered question for me was, okay, well, how far were the A's not willing to bend, right? Okay. Because the question is, okay, you want spring football, but absent are getting a chunk of the cut, which is something else too. Maybe Scott should have offered the A's a chunk of the cut of the tickets or sponsorship, right? Maybe the deal should have been designed to bring the A's in as a partner. That wasn't done. Okay? But you see what I'm getting at, all right? This is all deal making. And that's why every deal, no deal is exactly like the other, right? The Levi's Stadium deal isn't exactly like the Oakland deal, which isn't exactly like the Chase Arena deal, Chase Center deal, and so on and so on and so on, okay? The art of the deal. Okay. Then Cowboy says, I got that one, yeah. Joe Maintenance Hole says, how many jobs will be lost in total after losing the Raiders, Warriors, and A's if they leave? Approximately 2,000. And those jobs are FTEs, full-time equivalent units of work at the Coliseum. You see, the beauty of the Coliseum when the A's, the Raiders, and the Warriors are playing there is that, as one woman there who told me, who worked different shifts, she could work one 4-hour shift at one game take a break, and then come back at night, say for a A's game, night game, and work another 4-hour shift, and bingo, she's got an 8-hour day. And she was making, I think, $22 an hour. So you're doing the math, and for somebody even raising a small family, single mother, that's money she needs. Okay, but that's gone. It's the opportunity to be taken away. So you've got ML Scott, how you doing? John Akala, how are you? Green Goblin says Oakland Ballpark. I think you're referring to something that I said earlier. I apologize, Green Goblin, for missing that. Cowboy Russia says, I'll say this much. The Bay Area is more lucrative than Los Angeles. The A's would basically be leaving a gold mine if they decided to relocate to Portland and Las Vegas. Right. Same for the Raiders. And it's also why I was trying to explain to Ronnie Lott. I said, Ronnie, you know what? Give them the land and then engineer kind of a payback system, all right? Which on the face of it looks like a gigantic property tax payment from the NFL. The whole purpose, though, my thought was, hey, you have the NFL as a private landowner, and then similarly, you can activate tax increment financing, right? And move forward with a really great project, multi-use project with stadiums, offices, hotels, retail. You get the idea, right? He said, are you crazy? No, I'm not crazy. That's what he writes back to me on the email. Are you crazy? No. I was trying to get the NFL to say yes, and that was the whole idea. Anyway, and then not only that, see, Ronnie's thinking, you want me to give up ownership? No, he could have established an LLC with stock and then brought in the NFL as a partner and the Raiders as a partner. You have a triple-headed thing, right? And the city will have for it, right? Okay? So, hey. Cowboys' question is Oakland willing to basically sacrifice its sports future to keep the A's? And right now, it looks like the answer is yes. Okay, and that needs to be stopped. John Akala says Raiders seem to me like they played decently well in the first half. Now we're talking about the football game, and then there were opponents made adjustments for second half, and thus the defense can't stop anymore. What do you think? I think the Raiders do exceptionally well when they're in the scheme, and what John has to understand and his staff has to understand is how to shift paradigms when they come out of their approach. And they don't quite have that. They don't quite have that down. I mean, I don't want to take a lot away from it because look, they came very close to winning this game. And I have to be blunt. The Raiders did a lot better than I thought they were going to do. I thought the Raiders were ripe to get blown out of the stadium, and it didn't happen. They were the leaders. Okay? They had a great game plan going in. But what really stopped them was on defense. They couldn't stop the Texans' run when it mattered the most. Heck, they couldn't stop the Texans' run when it didn't matter the most. If you start looking at the drive charts, as I was doing, you'd see these runs like they're ripping off like 9 yards here, 7 yards there, 5 yards. These are runs, okay? So it's like, my God, if they can't, stop the run to where they're holding them. At the start of the season, the Raiders were holding them. It's all over. And a number of those runs were Deshaun Watson himself, which means that the Raiders didn't have and were not cotton to the idea of using, say a 5-wide, not a 5-wide, but excuse me, a 5-down lineman defense where the interior gaps are covered and you're able or a 6-5 or a 6-1. Okay, you refer to going through scheme, yeah, where they're basically making sure that the runs up the middle are not happening, and they're funneling runs to the outside. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. The Raiders had a problem stopping the run, and that's why they lost the game. And they couldn't stop the run when it mattered the most in the fourth quarter. And then they couldn't stop the run when it mattered the least earlier in the game. They had success here and there, but then you turn around, they're ripping off runs when they needed a first down. Runs. You know, you're like 3rd and 7, and you turn around, they picked up 8 yards of first down on the ground. Okay. So, Joe Maintenance Hole says, Paul Gunther should be fired, John. His scheme is terrible, and he doesn't put the players we have to be in the best position to succeed. I don't know about the firing part, but I do agree with the rest of that statement. He says, such as having a linebacker cover DeAndre Hopkins. Cowboy says, can we take a minute and appreciate how great a player Deshaun Watson is? Yes. Getting kicked in the eyes and throws a touchdown with one eye open. Wow. No, the dude is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. And that's the other, he's the difference maker, okay? He is plainly just a difference maker. Roland Dove says, if we lose that game, which we thought was the final game in Oakland, we have Bosa and a much better team. You know, I have to say, though, Nick Bosa's turning out better than I thought. And there are a number of people who, you have to remember, Nick Bosa was coming out. He hadn't played last year. He had a nagging, I think it was a groin injury. And then he had that whole Trump stuff, which at the end of the day didn't bother me much. But it was out there. It was an issue. And so he gave you enough to say, you know, I might want to take a flyer on this guy. Okay. And the Niners didn't listen to the noise. Good for them. And the result is the guy is balling out. Hey, I mean, a lot of people missed on Courtney from SMU, the guy that I wanted, the Raiders to draft that went to Denver. And I told him he's going to be all pro. So anyway, you can't get them all right, but the whole point is the Niners took him at number 2, and he fits right in with the defenders they have. And he is a solid addition. He's a solid addition. And I mean, I was the kind of person that, and I still think that Dwight Haskins should have been drafted higher, and he's with the wrong team. He's with a team that doesn't appreciate his skills right now. But Dan Snyder will get somebody who does. Kyler Murray ended up with the right organization. But there's no reason why Dwight Haskins, if someone decided to install much of the Oklahoma offense, would not be starting and excelling this year. I'm sorry. And so, Cowboy says, what do you think about Mr. Blank keeping Quinn through the bye? I think that is a question of, okay, if we get rid of him during the bye, are we going to get anything better? And not only that, it's also a testament to how much people, including myself personally, like Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is a fine, nice, upstanding leader who's, who does a great deal for people in the community. And he has that X factor. He's the kind of guy you want as a head coach from a community perspective. Also, you have to remember this. He did take the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. And so I think Mr. Blank doesn't want to play the game of what have you done for me lately. He wants to give Quinn a chance to dig himself out of this thing. And I get that, okay? I get that. But the Falcons' glaring problem is in the area where he specializes, defense. And he's allowing his guys to freelance a little too much. And he's asking people to stand up, and they're getting blocked all, pads up, right? And they're getting moved out of the way. Now, if you can get them in the right areas, the right technique, you can do really well. The Falcons have great personnel. Don't listen to anybody who says otherwise. So Cabarrus says, I still think the Saints, this is Cabarrus talking, and even the Packers are better than the 49ers, but we shall see. Those players, they play those teams in a couple weeks. Right, yeah, I'm not ready to, I'm glad you said that. I'm not ready to crown the Niners as Super Bowl contenders yet. Again, it's after the eighth game. If they rattle off an 8th win, okay. But I'm sticking to my guns. 7 ain't enough. 8, yeah, okay, yeah. Mark Allen says he would take Dan Quinn as D coordinator with the Raiders. John, not bad. John Carl says, how do we fix our pass rush? We need sacks, blitz. And when I say blitz, I mean use a pinch alignment and work on shortening the lines between the pass rusher and the quarterback. And I really like the idea of taking my DBs, bringing them in, blitzing far more often than the Raiders do, and even to the point of zone blitzing. Just to and overload blitzing. So, in fact, it's overload blitzing. I think the Raiders are missing in their approach more often than not. Now, if you want to say that the AA gap blitz is overload, I would say that's only one type, and basically it's easy to overcome if you're not the Arizona Cardinals. So John Acosta says, I'm curious to see what the Raiders do at trade deadline on Tuesday. I really hope they get someone that can rush the quarterback. They have people who can rush the quarterback, but it's how they're being taught to rush the quarterback, and the idea that they're being put on these islands and they're not using a 46 or 2 linebackers coming from one zone. They need to really have a more varied blitz package that is adjusted to analysis. Okay. Landlord says Niners. Roland Dub says his voice in locker room is stale. Time for a change in Atlanta. Landlord says, can you blitz you can't blitz when your secondary is trash. Excuse me. When your secondary is trash, you'd better blitz. Roland Dub says Niners have a stretch. I mean, think about that. Whoa, hold on a second. Just time out for a second, all right? Well, Landlord says you can't blitz when your secondary is trash. Okay, so you mean to tell me that your secondary is trash, and yet you're not going to pressure the quarterback? You're just going to let them sit back there and get eaten alive? So basically what you're telling me is you're just going to sit. You're just going to just take the situation as it is and get punished for it the rest of the year. Oh, my guys are trash. I'm just going to wait till I can get somebody else. No. Fix the situation. You blitz. Okay? What you wrote makes no sense whatsoever. Roland Dub says Niners have a stretch of Green Bay, Baltimore, New Orleans. Then you can tell what type of team. Yeah, you really can. And I'm telling you, they could come out of that stretch 0-3. Okay, and that's why I'm saying I'm not ready to crown them. All right? That's why I'm saying I'm not ready to crown them. Green Bay is hot. Baltimore is hot. New Orleans is hot. And they're every bit as hot as the Niners. Niners arguably got lucky here and there. Okay. And I'm not hating on the Niners either. I'm personally happy for Jed York and Kyle Shanahan. And the people on the 49ers staff and the 49er legends. I'm just calling it like I see it. I'm not ready to say, as some others, unlike some others, oh, they're headed to the Super Bowl. No. Patriots, different story. Niners, no. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Okay. I'll see it through this next 3 games, this next stretch. If they get 8, if the next one is 8, remember, they have to run the table for 8. Then I'm going to say, okay, yeah, Super Bowl. But if they don't get that, watch out. Rita Benito says, on a positive note, the Bears continue to lose. Hopefully they continue to fall. We get another high draft pick that we can use for leverage. There you go. I like that thinking. John Akala says, terrible call today on the roughing the quarterback call on Crosby. Yeah, there's a lot of these bad calls. I mean, it's like they either called them bad, or in the case of the Falcons game that I was at last Sunday, Matt Ryan Jared Goff got not touched at all. And they called roughing the passer. I thought, what? I mean, it's a shoulder tackle that just as he'd already gotten rid of the ball was just like bam, bam, right? You call that? Come on. So Rob Ivan says 49ers win on defense. Yep. 32 Assassin says, or use that pick to build what? To use that pick to build linebackers. Cowboy Rush says, let's be honest, the 49ers haven't played anybody. I'm sorry, but the Rams are basically an overrated team that the media keeps hyping up. That win doesn't count. You start looking at it, let's look at this, okay? Let's take a look at, let's review. Out of fairness to his rather angrily delivered point, let's review, okay? They clobbered Carolina, which, you getting a book on them in mid-season form, okay, fine. But then we go down here, trying to get the, you know what, let me do this another way. Schedule. 2019, sorry. The website wasn't cooperating. Okay. All right. The Niners play the Cardinals Thursday night in what I consider to be a trap game. They visit, that's this Thursday, and that's a trap game. By all accounts, the Niners should blow the Cardinals out of the stadium. But it'll be a great test for their defense if the Cardinals decide to go all air raid and just throw 50 times the game, okay? Then we're looking at the visiting Seahawks, and then we've got the Cardinals again. So the 49ers are looking at, and then the Packers on the 24th. So the 49ers in the Cardinals could be looking at number 8. Could be. Could be. Could be. Then you have the Seahawks. This is what I'm looking at. So what is he looking at? That. Okay. Then there's the Packers. Then the Ravens don't come until December, and the Saints. So realistically, the way they're playing, this could be win 8-0, 9-0, 10-0. That could happen. From here is where it gets scary. Right there, and there, and there. All right? This is a trap game. Okay? This is a trap game. This, the Seahawks could come in and beat the Niners. This, the Niners would win. Beyond that, this is where it gets really murky. So, again, it's, hey, thank you, Chief, for, oh gosh, gotta do that investment thing. Thank you. So, again, this is beginning to look like one of those tricky teams that can, if you were betting on them, could cause you to lose a lot of money. Be careful. Okay. I would take the Ravens as a better bet for terms of return. So Rob Iman says free agents are going to want to play in San Francisco this offseason. Landlord says Patriots haven't played anybody, but you don't hear about that. Well, that's because, Landlord, every time people mention they're not playing everybody, they've beaten everyone they played. And again, but I'm going to wait until they get, all right, 8-0. Cheese says Raiders have to win these home games. They do. The Raiders have to go win out because the Raiders are about now 2 games, 2 losses, 3 losses from being out of the picture. So this stretch is critical. And we have to stop talking about how the Raiders are, beat teams they should have lost to. Nah. Landlord says 49ers are missing 3 different offensive starters and still dominating. John Carlos says 49er fans for Arizona. Cheese says 49ers have competition versus Green Bay and New Orleans. You don't think the Seahawks are competition? Remember, the Seahawks beat the Rams. Okay? And the Niners beat the Rams. So basically, it's more like I see the 49ers and the Seahawks as King Kong and Godzilla in the NFC West. John Acosta says, how do you think the Raiders are going to match up with the Lions? It's a game that it's at home, but it's a game they could lose because, again, the Raiders defense is going up against another great pocket passer after having come off a player who's a better pocket passer this year than he was on top of his run dimension. Of course, that's John Watson. And then prior to that, we had Aaron Rodgers. So here we go up against one of Aaron Rodgers' key major quarterback competitors, Matt Stafford, and that great offense that he's guiding under their new offensive coordinator. It's going to be a long day. It's honestly going to be a long day. The only hope we have is if the Raiders' offense can match the Lions' offense in terms of output. That's our only chance. Cowboy Rush says, for me personally, I hope the Niners do great. I think it'll be good for the NFL in the Bay Area. I agree. Roland Dubs says, New England hasn't played anyone yet, but their difference is they are who we thought they were. I love that term. I love it when people say that. The Bears are who we thought they were, and we're crowned their ass. She says, all these years from 2003, to 2018, Raiders owe it to their fans to have a playoff home game. I agree. We got to help them get there. We have to start writing plays. Landlord says, Seahawks aren't as good as their record. They play the same teams as the Niners and barely got by, but they got by. The Seahawks are the scrappy team that figures out how to win. And John Carlos says, rest in peace, Denny Green. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rob Iman says, Kyle Shanahan is one of the top candidates for Coach of the Year. I would put him at number 1. What do I think about the Colts? I think the Colts are directed by another person who, if his direction continues, could also be another great candidate for Coach of the Year, Frank Reich. I love what consider what the Colts faced when Andrew Luck dropped the anvil on them, right? Oh my God, what are you going to do? And a number of people like myself said, hey, you got Jacoby Brissett. But the brethren said, no, 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 right? And look what he's done. Did you see that final drive before the field goal? Oh, beautiful stuff. I would be very surprised if Jacoby Brissett didn't emerge as one of the top candidates for Offensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Week this week. They might give it to Drew Brees, though, because he's back. Or someone from the Niners. This could be interesting. Hunter S. Thompson says, speaking about Warriors and Raiders, speak about Warriors and Raiders bad karma. Okay. I think since the Raiders are still here, we can't yet put that, bad karma thing on them. But the Warriors leaving Oakland for San Francisco is like Superman leaving the Earth for Krypton. He has his powers on Earth, right? But when he goes over to San Francisco, he's stripped down. That's how I see the Warriors. In Oakland, they were unbeatable. I think a big part of the Warriors' problem is that they have wrecked their fan base. No one's excited about them. The big players got paid to the max, so they're less hungry. And I do realize that all the players that got paid were guys that Mark Jackson brought in. Think about that. And so now, and the Warriors are without their real difference maker, the three, and the approach that they used, because now everybody does it and knows how to defend against it. So without that, there's no Superman's cape. You don't tug on Superman's cape, right? So John Acosta says, I'm surprised the Raiders beat the Colts. I am too. But I think the Colts were not prepared for the Raiders' run game. They're prepared for the Raiders' pass game, but they weren't prepared for them. The Colts was a surprisingly varied Raiders' run game. Hunter S. Thompson says, everyone hits those lines. He knows his. She says, agree. She says, Curry and Green don't even care. No, I mean, I hesitate to say this, but I'm just going to say it. That whole deal with Mark, the investor, hitting Kyle Lowry and pushing him, I think that was such a deep expression of institutional racism against Warrior players, against a black NBA player, that I think a lot of people on the Warriors team lost their enthusiasm for the game. Just not entirely, but just enough to not be effective anymore. It's like, hey, look, with a guy like this, and then we're moving away from Oakland, what are they saying about us, right? I really believe that's a big part of why the Warriors are performing this way, the way that they are. There's nothing to be excited about anymore. It's sad. John Cost says, it's going to be a long year for the Warriors. I think they may finish under 500. She says, Aisha Curley also didn't help. What do you mean by that? Bob Iman says, Joe Lacob will have no problem firing Kerr, if the Warriors lose enough games. I can see that. Because again, look, you want to go back to Warriors. Let's take a look at this, all right? Because I meant to show this. Let's see here. Mark Jackson. No, that's the wrong way. Golden State. 2014? 13. 2013 roster. Like that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is check this out. Golden State Warriors 2013. Tony, okay, power forward, Harrison Barnes, championship team, okay? There's Draymond, right? Dwayne Jones, okay? Steph Curry, right? Festus Ezeli. Then there's Klay Thompson, right? Okay. Andre Iguodala, all right. Kim Bazemore went to the Hawks. Remember that one. Remember, there's David Lee and Andrews Biedrins, right? Okay. Jenkins. So a lot of these guys, Andrew Bogut and Jermaine O'Neal, okay? Point that I'm making, well, less so Jermaine O'Neal, but a lot of these guys came over to the Curry era and they lasted and they collected multiple rings. And now they're max players. So Steve Kerr won with Mark Jackson's stars. But he didn't build his own core around them, to build off of that group. So at the end of the day, right, Kevin Durant's gone, right? So, and then Iguodala's gone. All right? And then not only that, somebody said that, and this was Bob Myers. Bob Myers was the GM then, okay? He was the GM here too. That whole thing about bringing in Steve Kerr, that was Joe Lacob. See, take a look at this. Take a look at this. 2013 Golden State Warriors, head coach Mark Jackson, general manager Bob Myers. Okay, right? Okay. Let's take a look at 2012. Okay. Who's that? 2012. Okay. And then look. Harrison Barnes, Draymond Green. Okay. You start to see the names, right? Steph Curry. Remember Monta Ellis, Klay Thompson. All right. So the point that I'm making is, all right. So the point that I'm making is that that core was brought in by Mark Jackson and Bob Myers, and Steve Kerr did nothing to enhance that core. He put them in a different suit, a different scheme, but they got older and richer, and who replaces them? There's been no great transition. Wow. Let me get to your comments, and then I'm going to have to in this puppy for Sunday. All right. Bob Iman says Myers is responsible for the max contracts. She says LeBron and Lakers are gaining confidence. I agree. Seems like they finally have the right mix. But watch out for the Clippers. Aaron says we look horrible. Roland Dub says Dub's problem, talking about the Warriors, is 1, they lost the best player in the game, KD. Yep. 2, their current second best player is out, Clay. Yep. 3, they have a new bunch of guys who haven't had time to gel. Expecting long year. That's right. That's right. I mean, but you see, here's the thing. Just reading your comment, Roland Dubs here, right? Right. We have no bench. They had opportunities to create this new bunch of guys 2 years ago, 3 years ago that, they didn't have to get rid of that would stick. But what this shows us is that they've had draft picks that were just awful. Okay? They had drafts that were awful. These guys didn't pan out. Scott Kennedy says, good morning from the DC area. The Nats are blowing it as they drop all 3 home games in the World Series. Yeah, come on, Nationals. Rob Ivan says, it may not hurt for the Warriors to draft this season. Not at all. Oh, man. I don't want the Nationals to lose to the Astros. Well, whatever. John Akala says, I'm not a Warriors fan anymore. Not the same. From Oracle Arena in Oakland to Chase Center in SF. No, it's not. Although I want to visit Chase Center because I just like to see what the finished product looks like. Roland Dub says, our ownership have the true meaning of commitment to excellence. They will do whatever it takes to bring in the Greek Freak next year and rise to the top again. Ooh, you saying that the Warriors will bring in the Greek Freak? That'll be interesting. Scott Kenny says, I'm a Redskins fan. I've been dealing with losing for the last 20 years. Oh, man. Well, hey, welcome to the party, pal. Rob Ivan says, glad the Nats fans booed Donald Trump tonight. Oh, I missed that. I missed that. Hunter S. Thompson says, do you think the Colts will make the playoffs? You know what? Get back to me on that one because of the Texans. But the Texans lost J.J. Watt, so I'm just, you know what? Yeah, I do think so because of the J.J. Watt situation. Yeah, so but I'm not 1,000,000% comfortable with that prognostication, so don't hold it against me. I reserve the right to adjust it. How's that? Scott Kennedy says, yes, thank you, Rob Iman. Rob Iman says, sell the team, Daniel Snyder. Gene says, Messiah Ujiri is similar to Bob Myers, but he has every African player in the back pocket. Yeah, he does. That's a great one. I like that. I think Messiah is a genius, man. That is a proud brother, you know. On that note, all right, it's 2:06 in the East, and I'm headed off to get ready for tomorrow. Thank you all so much for a really great conversation. 88 minutes worth, yeah. All right. Live long and prosper in your world. Thank you. Oh, Weaver says, Gruden's offense is actually looking pretty good considering we don't have a true number 1 receiver. No, that's true. That's what I'm saying. You know, defensively, they have to stop the run on a consistent basis. And they have to use run blitzes. They have to really be more aggressive than they have been. And someone said, well, they're already aggressive. Not aggressive enough for me. I want to see 46. I want to see the bear look. I want to see overloads. Single gap control, which they already do. All right, see you guys later. Good night.